Hi, my name is Braydon Labonte, and in this speech, I will be doing an informative speech over the Cold War. To start off, some facts about the Cold War. The Cold War is one of the biggest and most influential points of the 20th century. It started off in the 1950s and ended in the 1980s, and it was between us and Russia. It was basically who could wave the bigger stick at each other, and some of the key events were the Berlin airdrops in Berlin, Germany, that happened in 1950s after the wall was destroyed. We proceeded to drop food and supplies over onto the Russian side, and basically we were able to bankrupt the Russian economy. The United States was, which in turn helped us free Germany and be liberated from Russian control. Another one of the big key turning events was the Korean War. We fought in Korea, obviously, Korean War. We fought in Korea, and we fought against the Koreans, the North Koreans, and the South Koreans were on our side, and we were helping them. And the North Koreans were being backed by Russia. So, of course, anyone backed by Russia at that time, in our eyes, we sought them as enemies. Which brings me to my next key point, which is one of the biggest points in world history, in my personal opinion, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. This occurred in the 1960s, and it was when JFK was president. JFK received word that Cuba was getting missiles, nuclear missiles, which at that time, after we dropped the nuclear bombs on Japan, a lot of people thought no one should have nukes at all, but we had nukes, and Russia obviously had nukes, and then China was developing them at that time. So Russia decided to send nukes to Cuba. And why they did that is because we had missile bases or missile silos in Turkey. And we had those in Turkey because they were able to reach every part of the key cities in Russia. So like Moscow, Belarus, all those. So what happened was Russia decided, hey, we don't like y'all having missiles so close to us. We're going to send missiles over to Cuba, because Cuba is only 80 miles off the coast of Florida, which means if they have missile bases in Cuba, they can then in turn bomb Washington, D.C., New York, Chicago, all of our major cities. So Russia was supplying nukes to Cuba, and during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we tried to invade Cuba, and that did not go well for us, so we got turned back, and then Russia said, hey, we're going to keep doing this, and the United States said, no, you're not. So then the United States put up a blockade of ships all along the route from Russia to Cuba, so Cuba could not get the missiles from Russia received into their land. So a Russian submarine carrying a nuclear warhead, capable of shooting a nuclear warhead onto Washington, D.C., was just off the coast, and there was 3 admirals on board. And some say this is the closest the world has ever been to total annihilation. If you know what the doomsday clock was set to like 9 seconds at that time. So this nuclear submarine carrying a Russian nuke aimed at Washington, D.C., they said if all 3 admirals of this nuclear submarine say blow this bomb, it would be launched. Luckily, only 2 admirals said yes, and 1 said no, and that 1 admiral was able to save the fate of the entire universe, because if Russia decided to launch that, we would have launched our nukes, and then life on Earth, and life as we know it, would have been over. So that's a little bit about the Cold War and some of the key turning points about it. Thank you, and